All right, in this video, we'll be looking at the functional anatomy of the digestive system. We'll have a couple of functional anatomy videos, just basically walking through the entire system and talking about what each of the parts do. And so then we'll start with the mouth. The mouth is where digestion begins. It begins in both a mechanical sense, in that the food is actually just being chewed up, and it begins in a chemical sense as well, where the food is begin mixing with the digestive chemicals that start the breakdown of the food. And so the mouth is also called the buccal cavity or the oral cavity because of the cheeks enclosing the mouth. The walls of the mouth are lined with a certain kind of cell called stratified squamous epithelial cells. And these are really tough cells. They resist abrasion. And so this helps the mouth to stay intact, which is good as we chew. The cells of the gums, which are the gums are right up against the teeth, and these are keratinized also for extra protection. And so the inside of the mouth, even though it feels kind of weak, if you chew things that are rough like chips or something like that, it kind of tears your mouth up. But the mouth is relatively versatile and strong, and it repairs pretty quickly. Then you have the palate, and you can see here on the left, and then also match that up with on right here. You have the hard palate, which is mostly composed of your palatine bone, and then of course, the gum over the top of it. And you can see how the hard palate actually has this corrugation to it, and this allows there to be friction between it and the tongue, which helps you to chew and form the food that you're chewing into a ball so you can swallow it properly. And then the soft palate back here, which is soft because it's mostly just made up of muscle, and its purpose is to close off the nasal pharynx when you swallow. You can see here, and there's the uvula, the little hanging down thing in the back of your mouth. So when you swallow, the uvula along with the soft palate closes off this area so food doesn't go up into your nose, which wouldn't be good. So that's the mouth. The mouth houses some of these other parts that we're going to be talking about. Actually, all the parts that we're going to be talking about. So at least in this video. So let's continue on. So next is the tongue. The tongue occupies the floor of the mouth. Normally don't think of a tongue like that. So you can kind of picture this as, being put back in someone's mouth. And so most of this we don't even see, like this business that looks like eggs back here. We mostly just see this section of the tongue. And the tongue is composed of interlacing bundles of skeletal muscle. If you think about all the different ways you can move your tongue, it has to do with being able to mix up food and that sort of thing. And so those skeletal muscles are moving in lots of different directions. The tongue has lots of functions. It is for repositioning food as you're chewing, for the formation of what's called a bolus, bolus. And the bolus is basically a term for the food / saliva mix as you are chewing it up. And so formation of that, which is good because it keeps you from swallowing too much or too little. And then also the initiation of swallowing is done by the tongue. If you think about it, if you just swallow, your tongue is what starts that. Speech, also very important in speech. You can't talk without a tongue. And taste, just tasting of the food, which for us is more of a pleasurable thing, but for most of the animal kingdom has to do with determining whether or not food is safe. And so for us, we don't really use our tongues that way because we assume that most of the things that we're going to try to eat are safe for us. And you can see there the superior surface of the tongue and has lots of these what are called papilla, these little ridges all along, and there are different sorts of papilla that have all of these different functions that we're not going to get into, but you can see these, they're like peg-like projections of the mucosa. And then back here towards the back, you get into the tonsil area, which has these other functions associated with the lymphatic system, which we're not going to get into in this video. So next are the salivary glands. The salivary glands produce a chemical called saliva. The composition of saliva is mostly water, 97 to 99.5% water. And so it is hypoosmotic, which means that it will get into the things that you put in your mouth. for the purpose of beginning breaking them down. It is slightly more acidic than just regular old water, and there is a chemical in saliva called amylase, and the purpose of amylase is to break down carbohydrates. And you can see here, sorry, the phone is ringing and distracting me, so I'm trying to stay on task. All right, so you can see here the salivary glands associated with this. You have some really big salivary glands back here behind the jaw. We're not going to get into the specific names of them, but they're also located all throughout your mouth. The function of saliva is to cleanse the mouth, to dissolve food, and also dissolve the chemicals in food so that you can taste the food. Again, that's kind of a safety thing. It moistens the food so that it goes through the digestive system, and again begins the breakdown of starch with that chemical called salivary amylase. And then lastly are the teeth. The teeth are located in sockets along the gum, and the gum is basically covering up either the mandible on the bottom or the maxilla on the top. And the teeth are essential in the process of mastication, which mastication is a fancy word for chewing. And the purpose of the teeth is obviously to break those bits of food into smaller and smaller pieces. A little bit about how teeth are organized in our mouths. When we are first born, we have what's called our primary dentition or dentition. And the purpose of the primary dentition is this is like what you would call your baby teeth or your milk teeth. And there's 20 of those, and they begin around 6 months to 24 months of age is when you start getting them. And slowly as you age, you will actually lose these teeth. And what happens is the root of those teeth will actually dissolve from the bottom up, and it will cause the tooth to kind of fall out. And then you have a secondary section of teeth coming in, or what we typically call permanent teeth, and they will form a more permanent root in your mouth, and they will be there more for the rest of your life. And this occurs around, well, the teeth start falling out around the ages of 6 to 12 years old. And then all of your teeth come in basically right after that, with the last set of molars, which are called your third molars. Typically, we call these wisdom teeth. And you can see here around 17 to 25 years old. Some people don't even have wisdom teeth. I don't have them because I had them removed, but like Mrs. Chipman, for instance, doesn't have wisdom teeth at all. So some people don't have them. Teeth are classified according to their shape. These are things that you've probably heard before. There are incisors. The incisors' purpose is for cutting. The canines, they are for like tearing and piercing, usually for meat. You have premolars that are more for grinding and crushing, and then the molars in the back. These are the best grinders. And the purpose of the molars also is to interlock with the bottom row interlocks with the top row, and this creates a tremendous kind of force, which allows you to chew just about anything within reason, of course, and helps you to break that down. A little bit more about tooth structure for an individual tooth. You have the crown of the tooth here, and the crown is the part of the tooth that you see. It is covered by a substance called enamel, which is the hardest substance in the body, and it's heavily mineralized with calcium salts and other kinds of things. And basically, the enamel is there to protect the tooth so that no tooth decay or no cracks occur. But once those cracks occur, it requires artificial filling because, well, it doesn't. Those enamel producing cells degenerate as you age. And so that's why when we have a cavity or something like that, we have to get the dentist to fill it as opposed to our body just fixing it on its own. Then you have the root of the tooth, which is the bottom portion. It's connected to the crown by the neck. And the root obviously does what it says it does. It roots the tooth into the bone. There is a ligament also this is periodontal ligament here that attaches that tooth to the bone. Remember, bone to bone connection is a ligament. So here you go as well. Same sort of thing. And obviously these can be disrupted and cause you to lose a tooth. But this is a picture that I thought was interesting. A lot of us have wisdom teeth. A lot of us are you've all have to deal with wisdom teeth. And what can happen with wisdom teeth is they can actually start to grow in the wrong way, because some people, for our mouths, they're not big enough, or they can become impacted into the jaw, and that can also cause a problem.